Hey, how are
Hey, how
you?
are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh,
Glad
of
we could
course.
make this happen.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Sports and Hip Hop with DJ Mad Max, Live 365, iHeartRadio. Kristanna Loken joins me here for the show here tonight. Terminator 3, BloodRayne, Burn Notice. She's had a lot of work over the years. Dark Knight of the Souls, the new movie now. You've done a lot in this industry, modeling early on. But welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everything's going great. We're finally enjoying some nice, cooler weather here in Los Angeles, which is great. It was 100 all week last week. So it's starting to feel like fall, which is great.
Oh, that sounds good. I like 100-degree weather compared to the cold New York where I'm at right now, and the cold winters are coming.
It's true. Yeah. And I'm originally from
Yeah,
upstate New York. So
upstate.
I know those cold winters. And frankly, I am a winter person. I love winter. I love snow. I love winter sports. I come alive when it starts to get cooler. I guess maybe it's in my genetic blood since I'm mainly Norwegian. So
Yeah. But your early life, we could start with there because you grew up on an apple farm, and I heard that your father was the one who coined the term ripe trees and everything, especially with doing things with cider. So we have some historical facts there with the apple
that's
farm and
true.
having the over 20 different variations of apples.
That's right. Yes, you've done your homework there. And as a matter of fact, I am drinking tea from my Love Apple Farm mug, established in 1969. There you go. And yeah, my parents bought the farm in 1969, and they were pioneers in the whole organic fruit movement. And he did coin the phrase tree ripe fruit, and we hear that all the time now. And what it actually means is you ensure the ripeness of the fruit on the tree. So you may pick the same tree 5 times, just picking what is ripe. And yes, also with the cloudy cider, he was one of the first, and he should have trademarked it. But before it was just that very clear kind of apple juice, but he got more of the actual apple kind of pulp, if you will, almost left in the cider, which gives it that cloudiness and gives it more of a full flavored taste. So yes, they were pioneers of their kind in the fruit business and ran the farm for 43 years.
Wow. Do you remember like this preparing for all the apple picking seasons and just do you remember if anyone very notable used to come to the farm? Because I mean, your parents were in the industry because I believe it was your father who got you in touch with your first agent there.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah, my dad had done some acting, and my mother was a very successful model for many years. And they lived in the city. And then it was 1969, back to the earth. They bought the farm, and yeah, there were some very interesting artsy types that would come through the years and continue to. I mean, that the nearest town, Hudson, which you've probably heard of, maybe you've even been there, has become a real kind of New York upstate haven, if you will, with a lot of visual artists. There's different collectives. Art Omai is one of them. Artists come from all over the world. My dad was also an acquaintance of Willie Nelson and Bob Marley. And so there were some great legends of the day that passed through the farm for sure.
Wow, that is historic. And I know you grew up on music. I know I heard you're a big grunge person, but that hip hop was present. You were listening to that. So who are some of your favorite hip hop acts growing up?
That's a tough one for me. Yes, I was in the 90s more of a grunge girl for sure. But let's see, hip hop artists that I really liked in the 90s. Gosh, I'm trying to think of some that are coming to it's like I know. Well, I don't know if this is hip hop, but PM Dawn has come back around
Okay.
into my purview lately. How would you categorize PM Dawn?
I mean, kind of R&B-ish. I mean, it kind of goes
Yeah,
both ways, hip
R&B.
hop, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was more R&B, was like Boys to Men
Yeah.
too. I liked Boys to Men. I'm trying to think of some others. And then of course there was more of like Cypress Hill, but that's not hip hop.
West Coast. Oh, that's hip hop. That's West Coast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it West Coast hip hop? Okay, I didn't know where it fell. I guess it would be hip hop. Yeah, and actually, I met those guys and became friends with them later on in life when I moved out here. So yeah, the hip hop culture is really broad, I guess. Like you said, that's West Coast. You immediately were like, oh yeah, that's West Coast hip hop, as
Yeah.
opposed to like R&B. I'm not as well versed of the nuance of hip hop. So, how did you start your love for hip hop?
I think it started with Nelly's Country Grammar because that's what my mother was playing at the time when I was like a baby. She had the cassette in the car, and then when I heard "Ride with Me" and how a huge hit that was, I think that was the only thing I could really pronounce at the time. When he's like, "Hey, must be the money," and that's pretty much what I was singing in the background when I was like a baby. Yeah,
That's funny. How old were you then?
probably like one or two. Yeah.
Wow, and it landed with you then. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's how that was my introduction. Nelly is probably the reason why I'm here right now. It's a big case because from there that I would press up my own like cassette mixtapes when I was a kid, record the mixtapes with CDs and stuff. Yeah, I was a very artistic kid and into the entertainment life at an early age.
That's great, and it stuck because here you are.
Yeah. And here you are. I mean, so you get through with the modeling thing. I heard about all these tours that you do and then going around the world. And what was the point for you that you wanted to fully transition into acting? Was it that you just grew tired of it and just it was time for a change up?
Yeah, well, I always my passion has always been acting.
Hmm.
And since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actress. And I was blessed to
Beethoven.
have very different types of lessons, like different types of dance and voice. And I did summer stock theater. I'm an equestrian, I ski, there are all these things that I could do. So when I got old enough, and I'll never forget the movie I was watching. It was Beethoven. You remember with the big Saint Bernard? I don't know if you saw that movie.
Yeah, and I heard that this was the role that made you want to get into and you became good friends with the actress later on.
That's right. Yes, I did. Yeah, Nicole Tom, who's
Mhm.
about my age, and I could identify with her in the film. And I said to my parents, I said, "How do I get to do that?" And it was that moment when I was 13 years old, and my parents introduced me to my dad's old agent, Monty Silver, in New York City. And I went into the city, and Monty said, "Hey, there's this audition on As the World Turns, the soap opera, tomorrow that you'd be right for." And I ended up going in and reading with the boy who was playing like my love interest. And it was Jason Biggs, who then became known for his American Pie fame. And we read together, and I ended up getting the job. And I thought, oh, wow, this is so easy. Yeah, this is great. Little did I know that it was like beginner's luck. But acting was really always my passion. Modeling came around a bit of a means to an end. I mean, I've never really been inspired by fashion, and but I don't discredit the work that I did in that space because I got to travel the entire globe. When I was 16, I circumnavigated the globe on my own, actually, with of course different people who were watching out for me at various different places. But it was really an amazing experience,
Mhm.
and definitely, I guess, a different one than a lot of kids my age.
Is it true that you beat out Giselle? I was hearing.
Oh yes, in the look of the year contest, that is a true fact. Yes, and man, she went on to become, as we all know, an incredible model, supermodel. But yes, we did the look of the year contest in Ibiza, Spain, in 1994, and I placed third, and she was in one of the 15 finalists.
Wow.
But it was great. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So for me, it ended up at a certain point, and I remember telling I was with Elite Model Agency, and I remember telling John Casablancas, the owner, that I was going to California to pursue acting because I had auditioned for a job, and I had done acting in New York too, but I had auditioned for a job in New York that was going to be filming in LA, and they wanted to screen test me in LA. And he looked at me and he just kind of smiled and he said, "You'll be back." and I never was. And that was it. That was it. I stayed in LA and pursued acting, and the rest is history, as they say.
Mhm. And the industry, because I say it's changed, but I still believe LA is the place to be. Someone that's been in this industry for so long, with everything with social media, then you have Atlanta going crazy now in the entertainment space, and then a lot of people go to Canada to do things. Do you still feel as though LA is the number one source for acting?
For TV and film,
Hmm.
yes, this is the hub. I mean, yes, things have become a lot more remote for sure. But there is something to be said about going to events and meeting people in person. And I don't think that will ever change, really. Um, if you want to do theater, New York is really the place, and that's not to cut out, if you're an English actor, of course, London is the hub. So I think for Americans, it really depends on the type of acting that you want to pursue.
Yeah, and things have changed. And before we really get into all the whole stories, because we're going to get into the Terminator role, but how do you feel about, because with Rise of the machines are kind of, do you think they're slowly killing us mentally in a way with social media? Because people are, I mean, they're changing their lives because with depression, mental health now, people are altering their bodies and comparing themselves to what they see on social media. Do you think that machines are starting to really rise and kill us in a way?
Well, it's a very interesting question and topic. And yeah, here we are 20 years on from when T3 came out. And that is actually becoming a bit of a reality. And, I think I caution people to have a healthy relationship with screens, as I think many people, and especially sadly, I see a lot of young people that get really addicted to that. And it becomes this unattainable outcome where you're never going to think you have enough of this or enough of that, or you want to look a certain way, when you're losing sight of what really matters internally. And I think that's what we really have to focus on. So, um, you know, I think, and it's hard in this industry. I mean, I remember when I'm a bit of a technophobe. I've gotten better about it, but I didn't get a computer or really email to the mid 2000s, which I guess, I don't know, that's that late, but it seemed like everybody else already had it, and I didn't. Like, I held off as long as I could. Um, and it wasn't until a friend gave me a computer, and he's like, Kristanna, I live across the world. How am I going to stay in touch with you? But I think in my industry, everybody's a critic, right? I mean, it's like in life, you cannot please everybody, but all you can focus on is trying to get up every day and be the best version of yourself that you can be. You don't always hit the mark, but you learn along the way. And I think certainly, I have an 8-year-old son. Being a parent has really shifted things for me in that regard as well, because I feel like I am the student and he is the teacher. He's just taught me so much about what it means to really, be human and care on such a selfless, emotional aspect of yourself. So I think the more that we can really tap into what our values are, the more, excuse me, the more balanced we'll remain.
Mhm. When did you realize, because everyone's addicted to it and it's great that you're able to recognize it, and I heard that you really don't have too many screens in the house, and with the TVs and the laptops and all that stuff, and just really absorb life in. So when did you kind of realize that, yeah, this isn't something that I want to dive into and really have my son around? When did it kind of hit for you that it wasn't healthy?
Well, I think there's various parts to that. I think one, I've always been an outdoors person.
Hmm.
I'm an outdoor sports person. Growing up on a farm, I was always exploring, always playing outside, and I just there was that is my world. That is my playground, and I think that's the best way to educate yourself too. I've had the fortunate ability to travel, so I think just inherently, I'm not drawn to that. And then when I did get, the computer, and it was MySpace, and you started to see people's responses in real time, because before that I would just receive fan mail. I mean, that's basically what it was. And of course, if you're receiving fan mail, it's going to be favorable because they're not going to they're not going to write you something negative, and take the time. More often than not, maybe you get, one or two weirdos, but um, so I started to see, of course, everybody's got an opinion, good, bad, or otherwise. And I'll never forget. I went, I don't need to read this. This is not helpful to me. It's not healthy. And I never did again. And that was what? I mean, MySpace was, geez, almost 20 years ago now or
Mhm.
something. And so I really haven't bought into it. I mean, I think it's important now for the outreach because it's the medium in which we live. But I don't think it's healthy to read every good, bad, otherwise comment and obsess about it, because there's a proven fact that our brain, if you hear seven good things in the day and one negative thing, your brain will hold on to that one negative thing. Well, if you're sitting down and you're reading a ton of negative things and and a lot of good ones, your brain's going to just swirl on all of those negative things. So that's not doing anybody good. So I try to put out positive content, and I do appreciate positive responses, and I think that's healthy. But we cannot dwell on every little solitary thing, and I just don't think it's healthy to even go down that rabbit hole. So from there, I've seen various kids, and then with the advent of smartphones, babies that are like staring at a phone, and I mean, this is their world. They're experiencing it all for the first time. They don't need anything more. Frankly, none of us need anything more. We're just on this information superhighway, which great, I think is wonderful, to be able to get the answers that we seek so quickly now. But again, there's a time and a place. So I think it also comes down to impulse control and self control as well. I don't think, if I'm having a conversation with someone, I want to be speaking with them. I see so many people now, they're checking their phones, they're agitated, and they can't ground themselves. And it's sad to me. So when I started to see what it did to kids, I really made a conscious decision that I want my son, like I feel like I'm a citizen of the world, and to embrace the joy that it is to be human. And then you don't feel dependent or attached to really anything in life, and you can just really appreciate the moment. And he is a total outdoor kid, and we're lucky we live in an area where we've got a lot of outdoor space, and that's great.
That's good. No, that's how you live a normal, healthy life. Because a lot of it right now, they're all caught out on social media. Everyone thinks they're celebrity. They're doing things that are out of character. And just you look at the political climate, everyone believes all these conspiracy theories. If you go on X, it's crazy how it's really shaped a narrative out there, and when people just buy into everything they read.
It's true. It's true. And I think the more content that we negatively fill our brain with, and the more people buy into that, the further down the hole you can go. So why even start?
Exactly, exactly. Terminator 3, because this was the big role, but before that, you did some acting work in Mortal Kombat. So did this prepare you for the role as TX, being in some action work?
For sure, yes. Mortal Kombat Conquest was my first action role, and I did have a dance background, as I mentioned. So learning fight choreography was not dissimilar to learning dance choreography, albeit the body positioning is different. So it just made sense, and I've always been, as I mentioned, a very physically active person. Um, so yeah, it just was really the right fit for me. And then from there, when Terminator came around, when that audition came, I had loved Robert Patrick in T2. His performance was mind blowing to me. And I didn't see a human being behind his portrayal
Mhm.
of the T1000. And so when this job came around, this audition, I just said, this is it. This is the right role for me. Because also too, I'm tall, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I have a deeper voice. Sometimes when I was younger, I'd be taller than the guy playing my dad, I mean, so they didn't quite know how to place me or cast me. And I thought, this one has no restrictions. I can be tall. I can have the voice that I have. This is. I can be physical. This is the role for me. So, and also to that point, I think growing up a lot about outdoors as well, there was a certain physicality to just riding horses and being a little bit more rough and tumble than maybe other women. So it was a series of probably eight auditions, and the auditions were very physical. Obviously, it was a lot of running, jumping, falling, getting up, looking, and yeah, there was something about it that just clicked.
Yeah, I did hear that with the auditions, that it was like 8 auditions, like you mentioned there. Was it them calling? You had to run against other people in each audition. Were they judging you in a group of people against each skill set?
That's an interesting question, but no, they
Hmm.
took each of us in individually. When it got down to the very, very end, they had us specifically wear, I remember it was like black stretch pants, and I seem to remember it being some kind of a red fitted top, or like at least I wore, I think, like a burgundy fitted top. They wanted something form fitting so they could see how you moved. And again, the dance background was just imperative to this, because if you don't have a real awareness of your body and your physicality, you're not very connected to it. I mean, it sounds like I'm stating the obvious, but it's very true. I mean, there's a lot of there's plenty of actors that don't have that, and it's just a different type of connection than if you've had more physical training. It's like I see incredible stunt people that I've worked with that are martial artists, or they have a certain specificity in their training that just really gives them this kind of edge in a certain way. So yeah, for me in that sense, the dance background really helped.
Hmm. I heard that you were on a plane with Linda Hamilton. Was this was right before the filming of Terminator 3? Or was this after? What happened with this story?
This was after the fact, and this was totally random. Or I mean, I don't know, unless you don't believe in randomness in life, um, that I was sitting down on a flight from LA to Vancouver, and I noticed this woman coming on, and I'm like going, wow, she looks just like Linda Hamilton. And she's got her ticket in her hand, and I glanced down at the ticket, and I'm like, it's Linda Hamilton. And here we are, sat right next to each other for 2.5 hours, and we talked the whole way. She is a lovely human being, and I've had the pleasure of doing various conventions with her, and she's someone that really cares, and really cares about humanity, and it's really beautiful to see. So yeah, I mean, I ended up running into Robert Patrick. I mean, I did see him at an event, so that's not as strange. That was before Terminator, and I introduced myself and told him, who I was, and that I was going to be playing that role. And then later on, we did end up working together. We did SWAT Firefight, a film where I play his crazy, estranged ex-lover who ends up coming into his workplace brandishing a gun, and things don't go well. Let's just say, if you haven't seen the movie, no spoiler alert. But I remember the two of us sitting in a bar and having a conversation that probably no two other people could have, given our opportunity to be Terminators in the Terminator franchise. especially to that time. Yes, there's been other Terminators since, but it was really incredible and how that shifted our lives. And then again, another ironic circumstance, or
The
maybe not.
hospital, I heard.
Yeah, yeah. After I gave birth to my son, I come down the elevator, and who's standing there but Robert? And I'm like, Robert, I just had a baby. And so he comes up and he meets my son, and who was only a few days old, and he says a prayer, and it was just beautiful. He's another person who's couldn't say anything better about him. Very kind-hearted, very gracious, just a wonderful man. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know you guys are friends. As far as, because when it really hit for you, I think it was the arrival scene in the crouch position, just like how it all starts out in all the early Terminator movies. Was that the first scene that was actually shot for the film?
No, it was the very last scene.
Wow.
It was the very last scene on the last day of a 100-day shoot, and which was great for me actually, because I got to really fine tune my body for those 8 months that we were filming, and then 100 days, and then an additional like 3 months before then, when I started training and extensive training and working with a nutritionist, and put on 15 pounds of muscle mass, got my body fat down to that of an Olympic athlete. Um, so yeah, it was I like a good challenge, and I took this one on like, yeah, I'm going to give it all I've got, which is pretty much how I do things in life.
Yeah.
But this was a great personal challenge.
It was definitely a memorable movie. I mean, you really put the intimidation in the audience, just like in those scenes when you're in the vet and you're following Catherine Brewster around, and she's hiding. You could really feel the intimidation there. I mean, how the film starts out with you just killing people, pulling up to the drive-through, shooting the guy at the drive-through, shooting the
Right,
guy in the house.
right.
Crazy.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of great, memorable moments, and yeah, to be a part of that franchise is really special for
Yeah.
sure.
Saw the fiance. Did you saw him or you shot? It sounded like a saw when you killed him at the fiance.
I think it's a saw. I mean, I had a few tricks up my sleeve, literally. We don't, it's off screen, but we hear it, and we see the blood splatter. So, but we do see the saw come out one other place, I think, in the film. So yes, yeah, yeah, few tricks.
I did read the article about, because I remember you speaking about it, that it was interesting to learn about, because Arnold never fought a woman on screen before, and I know you learned from him with doing this fight scene. So did you kind of realize there that that was probably what you learned from him, because this was the first time him fighting a woman on screen like that?
That article was interesting because I feel like I learned a few things from reading that article. I didn't really, he never really let on to me that was the case. And I didn't know that. I didn't even think about it at the time. And I really appreciated what he said. He gave me, a nice compliment there that I had, done my training, and I really went for it. And I told him that. I said, you do what you need to do. I mean, and I didn't even remember saying, like, you can, fight me like you would a guy. But that sounds like me. um, but yeah, I mean, I'm always in my work. I always like it to be as raw and authentic as possible. I mean, obviously within reason. You don't want to get hurt, and you don't want to be a liability to production. So there's certain things that you can't do. And I had an incredible stunt double in that woman who I subsequently have worked with for years, Elisa Hensley. Um, but yeah, I did really learn a lot by working with him, and I am chuffed, as they say in some countries, that I was the first woman he got to fight. I didn't
Yeah.
even know.
What was your most memorable conversation with him on the set? Because I know you said he's a prankster, and we know he loves his cigars, and you were able to go really kind of worldwide with him with the press and even his ex-wife Maria Shriver. So what was kind of the most memorable conversation you had with him?
Um, hmm. There were many. There were many. I think him being really supportive of my career
Mm,
and my future. There was a moment that I'll never forget. I mean, there were many, but this one sticks in my mind. We had the premiere in LA, and then we took the Sony jet and we flew to Tokyo so that we could get there in time for the Tokyo premiere, which was, not that long after. And we get to this stadium where they were having the premiere, and it's Jonathan Mostow, the director, Arnold, and myself. And it is a massive stadium, like where they have sporting events, rock concerts, and it was packed. And the three of us walk out onto this platform stage to introduce the film. And I just took it and I'm like, this is what it must feel like to be a rock star. This is my rock star moment. And even Arnold, who's been doing this for many years and is one of the biggest celebrities on the planet, I could tell he was even like looking around like, wow, this is amazing. The energy, the just the fans, the sound, and Jonathan's eyes. We and we I mean we didn't say that much because we were just introducing the film, but I remember us walking down, and there was kind of a couple moments where we didn't say anything, and as we're walking off stage, and he just kind of looked, and he said, you're gonna have a great career, Kristanna, like Sharon Stone. And it was really sweet. It was really sweet, and I'll never forget it. And so yeah, that was a great moment.
wow. No, thank you for sharing that. Because when you got the call, you were horseback riding, and they said they told you you ready for your life. It's going to change now, and it changed.
It's so true. Yeah, I sure was. Yeah, I was on a ride with a couple of girlfriends and got that call. And yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really know what you're signing up for. And I remember Jonathan telling me, you're not going to be able to pump your gas anymore in anonymity, and you don't know until it happens,
Mm.
and then you're in it. And thankfully, I've had the support of my family, which has been extremely grounding for me, and my passion for the craft, for what I do, that I think is really, you know, given me a good backbone and grounding. And my love of travel, being able to also take a break for me has been important. I love what I do. I've never been hugely in like the scene of Hollywood, but it's there, and I go when I need to or when I feel like it, and then I step away, and have a private life. And I think to have longevity in the business, you got to have various different things that do ground you, whatever that is for you. And everybody's different, and everybody does it differently. Um, but and you got to in the end have a thick skin, and you got to believe in yourself and love what you do. And most of all, for me, I love my craft. I love doing all different types of roles. I love challenges. And I honestly feel like at this stage of my life, best is yet to come.
Mhm. I agree, no doubt about it. And we're going to get into these other roles, but something that was interesting with this Terminator film was the miming aspect because this has to do with the craft. So how hard was it for you to deprogram and then get into that? As far as because you couldn't blink when you would shoot the gun or when your arm would shoot Arnold or through the wall, the vet there. So how did that when you had to get into that mode and then get out of that because you had to train specifically for that with the mime.
That's right. It was Jonathan's idea to work with a mime coach, and it was a great one because It was really the icing on the cake of working with the LAPD to learn how to use the 45, which is my weapon in the film. Nutritionist, Israeli martial arts, Krav Maga, all different aspects of training, weight training. And Jonathan said, "We're going to work. You're going to work with a mime coach to eliminate all those human aspects, and as you mentioned, like blinking while firing a gun, showing exertion while running." And the mime coach was this protege of Marseille Marceau, and he worked a lot with external energies against things like metal and things that just set you apart from just relaxed human talking, that are just a little bit different and off. And that aspect of focus, I mean, if you see mimes on the street or, in a performance, there is something that's removed. And it's also very meditative. And ironically, I started meditating when I was 18, and that's another grounding factor that's been important in my life. So the breath work there really helped, and yeah, the mime training was a delicious part of the character as far as the layering goes.
Yeah. And that's what just gave you into the experience there with the craft of acting. And then when we go on to, because your life changes, happiness is something that people try to attain in life, whether it's whatever they're buying, it's a mindset really. So when were you fully happy? Were you happy once you got this film role? What was the moment to where you said my hard work is paid off? And because a lot comes with that, because it's such a huge role, then you have to go do these other ones and almost exceed that role. So when was it the happiness moment for you in the industry?
Hmm, it's a great question. I think I think it's in the satisfaction of doing the work. Um, it's it's a grind, and it's not easy. And this is what I tell my son Thor when he's, things start to get a little difficult, and that inherently you may want to shy away or pull back, but that's when it gets really interesting, is when you allow yourself to go deeper into the challenge and push through. And I think for me, that's where the satisfaction comes.
Mm. No, I like that. You got to love the craft at what you do, because if you don't love it, then you're going to get lost in it. Because if you get it once, then you're chasing something that wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and I think you're then doing it for perhaps the wrong reasons too.
Fame. That's what a lot of people get caught in, just the fame aspect. Yeah.
Right. The attention, the things that come with it. But it's a vicious cycle. And sadly, I've seen a lot of my contemporaries crash and burn. And, I don't have all the answers. It's not easy. It's not an easy profession at all. But I think if you tap into that aspect of yourself, of why you do what you do, and I've never thought about it in that way. Thank you for asking that question, because I
Oh,
think
thank
that
you.
for me is where the joy really lies.
hmm No, and that's something that I wanted to hit home with the audience, because I feel as a lot of people really don't know what happiness is, especially if you're in this industry. Because as I can relate to it, I'm always looking, what's that happiness moment for me? So it's great to know that it's the craft itself.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I'll take that with me. Now I know.
Yeah. But we got BloodRayne. When did you really start to get into this role? Because this was a video game beforehand. So were you familiar with the game before getting this role?
I wasn't. I'm not a gamer in my non-tech world. I heard about it. I've always liked vampire movies. I think there's something really intriguing, and I think a lot of people do. That's why people like them, about taking someone's life force for yourself and living forever. But then, of course, there's all the responsibility that comes with that. So my character in BloodRayne is a damn fair. She's half human, half vampire. So, as I would like to say, she's like a vampire with heart. She actually thinks about, she doesn't like the fact that she needs to take blood to survive. And that is a quandary you do see, a theme in vampire movies sometimes. But hers was a little bit different. And working with Sir Ben Kingsley, who played my father, was just an awesome experience. He is an incredible actor and a wonderful human. And so yeah, I feel blessed in that.
Yeah.
And I got to ride in the movie. And as an equestrian, anytime you get to do something that you love to do on film, even better.
Are you someone that likes the horror genre? Are you, because most actors I talk to when they get these horror roles, they're not fans of the horror genre. So were you someone that was a fan of beforehand? Because I know you mentioned you like vampire movies.
No, not horror. No, I had a bad experience when I was younger, watching Nightmare on Elm Street when I was
Oh,
too young. The classic, like at my friend's house, her sister, who wasn't that much older than us, was babysitting. And I mean, I was ruined after that. Like I have an aunt who lives on Elm Street, couldn't even stay there. It was like to
wow.
that degree. And then ironically, on the convention circuit, it's Robert England, right? And that's the actor who
Plays
played
Freddy.
Freddie. I'm having lunch with him, and I'm like, this is just real. Like my life never ceases to amaze me. And so I told him, I said, I got to be honest, I really, but again, he did his job well, right? And now as an artist, and I can appreciate that. But so no, I'm not a horror fan, but like Interview with a Vampire movies that have more of a drama aspect to it, I like.
Mm. No, that definitely is. That grabs the interest because it not only has the horror element, but there's a storyline to it.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And a real depth of emotional life, which
Mhm.
is and a journey of these characters, which is always intriguing for me. And those are the characters, that I always like to portray.
The L Word, that was a huge hit series, and then they brought you on. So was there any pressures, or I mean, you work with some of the biggest in the world, but as far as when you are going on to a hit show, was there any pressures kind of you molding in as a new character that's already have been a hit?
Yes, I think I didn't necessarily think of it from the character perspective. Logistics, like with any close knit show. I mean, think about it. If you're whatever job you have and you're walking into a new job that's very close knit, you just wonder on a personal level, how are you going to mesh in? And the show itself was a pioneer of its kind, and it was the first time that we really saw same-sex relationships, of course, slightly glamorized, but in relatively natural circumstance. And so that really helped normalize and I think break the stigma of same-sex relationships. And my sister was a big fan of the show, and so she was filling me in on the characters and their backstories and everything. And so yeah, I'm really glad that I was part of the cast for that one.
Mhm. And you're someone that's been outspoken about same-sex relationships, and I actually had the privilege to interview Anne H before she passed away, like over like 2 years ago now, which is crazy what happened. But did have you? Because she was the one to really take the fall in the industry of where people were like, "Yeah, this isn't acceptable." With her and Ellen going on the red carpet. So because I've heard about you speak out about what you've done personally as far as relationships and things like that. So have you noticed that she kind of lifted the weight for everyone? Is it still scrutinized in the industry?
Not nearly as much.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's interesting because it's really only been maybe 20 years, since I started being open about my sexuality and being bisexual. And I never really thought about it. I just, it wasn't like this big conscious choice of like, no, someone asked me and I think I just answered because my sister's a lesbian, and she just said, it doesn't matter whom you love, and the less that we make it an issue, the less of an issue it will be. So just be who you are. And so, yeah, I never really thought about it. And now, thankfully, it's people really, there's not a lot of stigma about it. I don't think at all in this industry. So I think the last 20 years have been pivotal. And I think before, there was a lot of pressure, or people put the pressure on themselves. And it's sad. I've seen it. And they've really, I think also truly, to be the full artist that you can be, you have to be honest with yourself first and foremost. And if you're not being able to be honest with yourself or to your audience, how can you really fully embody all the characters? And in my life, I would love to be able to portray as many different types of characters as I can, because I feel like there's a little bit of me that can relate in all of them, and no matter what the circumstances. Of course, some characters are very, very different than me, but the journey and the joy, and again, it goes back to the joy, is finding that common ground, and the similitude around how do we interrelate, which again is how do we all interrelate in humanity. And I think that's really the importance of. I mean, I love people. I mean, that's why I do what I do, is because I study people. So to me, the more that we know about ourselves and others, the better humans we can be. And of course, as an artist, the better artist I can be.
This was going to be a question I asked you. What was the character that you related to most playing at the time that you were going through emotionally and your personal life at the time?
Ah, at the same time.
Yeah, what you were going through emotionally, and then all of a sudden you're in this role, and you're like, "Wow, I'm really relating to this character that I'm playing right now."
Hmm. That's an interesting question too. Gosh, you got some good
Oh,
questions. Thank
thank you.
you. I have to think. This is great. Yeah, gosh, it does depend where I'm at in my life. It seems like what type of roles I'm more drawn to or not. Um, but I'm trying. I don't know. There's not one that sticks out that I said, "Wow, this is really mirrors the aspect of what I'm dealing with." But I think overall, I tend to be drawn to deep emotional characters, because that's what's most interesting to me. That's what I like watching the most. And I think we as humans in a body are emotional beings. So being able to tap into places in myself that perhaps in my day to day life I'm not, becomes therapeutic in a way. Or maybe there's a relationship aspect to it, like there was a film that I did, called Made for You. Actually, it ended up having a different name, I think, in some countries. But there was this love triangle between. Well, she ended up getting framed, but between this man and this other woman, and trying to figure things out. And I think there was a point in my life where I was dating various people and figuring things out in my life, and where do I want to go in my relationships. And to me, it always comes back to the person, to the individual. But gender is really secondary. But there's times like that where roles come to me, and it allows me to process things differently. Upcoming film that I have, well, there's a couple, and I know there's three, we'll get to them. But um, I can just say that one of them is called Dark Night of the Soul. And this is a woman who works for the CDC. It's a pandemic. She gets into a car accident. She gets pinned under her car. And through a series of blood loss, she doesn't know if she's going to make it or not. and she's got these hallucinations and visions and flashbacks, and it's taken from a poem called Dark Night of the Soul. And this poem looks at uh, your dark night. When you're staring death in the face, do you believe that you have processed everything that you need to in your life in order to let go to the afterlife? Or are you still holding on to something that you think you need to accomplish? Now, that was a really interesting question to me because I had never really thought of death and life in that regard. And this is an old poem. Um, so it's moments like that where you go, wow. I mean, I've always been the type of person that's wanted to go for it in my life as much as possible and live in a way that's, with no regrets. But when this character was really faced with that, that's when you really, again, go back to your truth. What really matters? What are my values and why? So, I hope that answers your question.
It did. Yeah. That was going to be something that I touched on because with these roles, you have to really relate to the character. And I was reading about the storyline for Dark Night of the Soul, and you're faced with death. So, I mean, in your personal life, was there ever a time where you realized that, yeah, death is real? Because I went through my own health crisis last year to where things came close. I really haven't told my story yet, but things came close last year, and it makes you think like, wow, it makes you grateful for everything that you've been through. So was there a time that, only if you feel comfortable sharing, to where like you were faced with that death is real, I'm not invincible?
Um, not like a near death moment, but there have been some experiences in hindsight where I've gone, wow, that could have been close.
Hmm.
Um, I'm an open ocean swimmer, and I, you know, would like to believe I swim in places that are safe, but I don't know. There's always an element of there are sharks in the water. I'm willing to. I love swimming so much, and I think it's safe. Uh, but you don't know. And I mean, there was one time that I swam um, through this channel uh, on an island called Inyaka off the coast of Mozambique, and this was not a wise choice. Um, and again, I think open ocean swimmers kind of realize this when they go into it, but I decided to swim to this other island, and the tide changed, and I started getting stung by jellyfish,
Oh.
and I didn't have enough sunscreen, and I could feel I was getting pulled out to sea, and luckily, and I was with someone, luckily, but we spotted some guys fishing, and we waved to them, and they let us sit on their rowboat, basically, for a while until they were going back. And then I talked to a friend after that, and she said, "Oh, Kristanna, yeah, we used to take people on boats to that other island, but there were some big sharks in that channel." And just going like, oh my gosh. So moments like these when you're going, wow, okay. That was in my younger days. I was maybe 25 then, but another time, doing stunts, there
Hmm.
was one time where I was not, I was doing wire work, and I was up in a tree, and I had rehearsed this one move many, many, many times with the Cirque du Soleil troupe, and to kind of unravel myself, cascade down with this armful of leaves and deliver my dialogue, and it all went great. And then they bring me down, and I realized there was no safety harness. They had
Oh,
forgotten
wow.
to harness me. So if this one wrap had not been wrapped correctly, you know, it could have been really bad because I was like 40 plus feet in the air. So there are moments. There are moments that you go, yeah. So I guess the point of that is, yeah, just try to live life to the fullest and be safe as much as you can. But we're in a body. We don't necessarily, we don't necessarily know if we're being safe or not if we think we're doing all the proper precautions. Um, but that's the risk we take, I guess, of being alive. Just try to make the best choices.
Yeah.
I tell myself, my son.
uh, but this film with Dark Knight of the Soul, it's going to be in festivals and things like that. When's this? Were we getting this official release? Because I know it was supposed to be hitting the festivals. I heard.
Yes. And now it looks like the official release is going to be in November, actually next month, sooner than I
Wow.
initially anticipated. So I will certainly be posting about when that is available. But yes, that will be released next month. So that's the next one I have. And then I have No Address, which is a very important film about the homeless crisis that we're experiencing in America. And this film is written and directed by a dear friend, Julia Verdon, who got on a tour bus. She went to 17 different cities, interviewing people from the homeless communities, hearing their stories, talking to lawmakers, seeing what's broken, seeing what works. We here in Los Angeles have the largest homeless community. It's about 75,000 individuals. It's just staggering. We have an important measure that those of you living in Southern California and LA County, please vote yes on Measure M to help support housing and mental health care and treatment, addiction treatment, recovery programs for the homeless. So with that, they've done a documentary, Americans with No Address, which is currently out now. A novel adapted from the scripted feature. 50% of all of this is going to help nonprofits that support people experiencing homelessness. And then the film will be released nationwide in cinemas February 28th. So I play, it's an ensemble cast. My character Kim is the wife of Billy Baldwin. We have a 10-year-old son, and it is an interwoven story with these other people's lives and how they end up on the street. And what it really underscores is that through a series, again, we go back to choices. Anybody could really end up in that experience. So to really build humanity and compassion and empathy for those that are experiencing it. So that's an important film. And then I have a film called Vice and Virtue, which my company Trio Entertainment produced, in which I also star. This is another film that really underscores the importance of choices. We have Vice and Virtue. Some of those choices take us down one path. Some choices take us down another path. And what do we choose and why? And that really makes up our values in life. So Vice and Virtue will be out beginning of next year.
No, these are definitely deep films, and I love this. And this is with these films are all within your company here, Trio Entertainment. I remember hearing about you creating this company because you said the industry there was too many inconsistencies, and you want a creative control. So, what was going on around that time to where you said that there's too many inconsistencies, and you had to launch this company for yourself?
Yeah, and I should just say, Vice and Virtue is one that I produced, not the other two.
Okay, so it's just
Just
Vice and
yeah,
Virtue. That's the one with under
correct.
Trio Entertainment. Okay,
That's right.
we
Yeah.
clarified it.
So for me, I would get various scripts that just seemed kind of pointless to me. And I wanted to create content that was provocative and left you thinking a little bit more deeply about yourself. And I was inspired to create my own company and create content that I thought could make a difference. I've always been interested in social impact films. I did another film that I produced before called Fighting for Freedom, which has now been re-released, starring myself, Jose Maria Yazpic, and Bruce Dern, two-time Academy Award nominee, plays my dad. About and written by my dad, I should definitely say, Chris Loken. We shot it on my parents' farm and in Hudson in upstate New York. And that's again a film about the inequity in the immigration crisis that we're experiencing in this country that continues to not be resolved. And in that film, there's the immigrant family that lived and worked on my parents' farm has 3 children, and the youngest was born on a trip back to Mexico when the father's mother is dying. And at 3 years old, she faces deportation. So, I mean, where is she going to go? So there are various aspects, and I think as an artist and working in the medium of cinema, we really can make a difference if we choose to make films that help educate. Now, again, there's all different types of films that I like to do. Some pure enjoyment, you'll come away from it in a different way. But the ones that I really get behind and that I like to produce have a message. Also, I should say Attack on Darfur, which is about the genocide in Sudan. That's another social impact film that I co-produced as well.
Yeah, that's powerful and impactful. That's what we need. And I heard that you want to take on directing next. So, what is it that you want to direct? Do you have anything in mind?
Another great question. Yes, I do. That, I'm not sure yet. I think when the right script comes along, I'll know. So yet to be determined on that one.
Mhm. As far as directors go, who is the one that you learned the most from working hands on? And then who is the one from a fan perspective that you loved growing up?
Hmm. Who is the one that I worked with most hands on? I think for me, it's really been an amalgamation of many. I think having my eyes open through 30 plus years in this industry, you learn so much, you glean so much. And that's why producing made sense to me, and making that foray with the first film that I produced, Lime Salted Love, gosh, close to 20 years ago now, and various others since then. You just learn as you go, and I think there's a piece from various different directors, producers, writers, that you take something with. Most recently, I also worked with James Cullen Bressack on the Van Damme movie I did that came out in May called Darkness of Man.
Yeah.
And he's a really, and he's become a good friend, wonderful younger filmmaker who has been directing since he was 18. I think he did his first film, and now he's 32. Loved collaborating with him, and I love his mindset of thinking outside the box. I think there's a very new, fresh perspective in the way that he wants to create content, which is a bit, um, you know, unfettered and unruly in the sense of he's just going to do things that maybe haven't been done before. And I like that about his style. There's, I think, now to go back to your initial statement about the business has changed so much. So there's really no, through line of how you have to go about financing a film, directing a film, producing a film, or having a certain budget, or any of it. And I think the more that we stay, and certainly with my company, flexible to that, the more opportunity we'll have and we'll continue to create.
You were ahead of the game because now everyone wants to be independent. And now with the strikes and everything, AI is going crazy. And especially when we look at it in the music industry, all these artists now, they preach independence. All these people have platforms, independence now. It's almost as though you have to utilize and make connections within the industry to create your own business now. That's how it is.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, and it's true. I mean, you really have to be your own machine, so
Yeah.
to speak, in the industry and in the business. And yeah, it would be very different if I was starting out now. I'm I'm kind of glad I got the backbone that I did when I did, and the education in that sense. But you know what? Look, the people that are coming up now will have an edge on things in a way that I haven't seen either. So I mean, I think there's a good aspect in all of it. It's in the end, it's just collective knowledge, right? You start from a certain point and you continue. I mean, I look at my dad; he's 92 years old. He's a writer. He's producing a podcast right now, taken from one of his novels and screenplays. And the guy just doesn't stop. So I think the more that we can stay sharp with our mind and nimble in our flexibility of what we can learn, I mean, I feel like that this is the exciting thing of acting as well. There's no CEO. There's no end point. You know, you can continue to learn as much as you possibly can and use that in your lifetime and as an artist. So yeah, I'm learning new things from people of all ages all the time, for sure.
That's the best way. And something I've learned from you is that, and I mean, you could just really apply it to, especially if you're in the entertainment industry, is that failures lead you to your success. What was the failure that you believe led you to success?
Hmm. You learned that from me?
Yeah, I did. Well, I think I've learned that just subconsciously, but being unconscious about it, because it is true when you really look deep into it. But when read things online about you, I did see that you said that failures lead to your success, and it's true.
Yeah, no, that's it. That is true. And thanks for the reminder, because you know, I used to be really afraid of failure. I've been an achiever and, you know, had this kind of perfectionism thing. Of course, I mean, these things are unrealistic in life. But what I've learned through that attachment is that failure, the essence of that, is vital for growth. I mean, and I've watched like I love Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren is my favorite actress. And I've watched her early work at the BBC all the way through, and Prime Suspect and her later work, and you see this range of growth through the years. And I see it through my work. I mean, anybody that stays in anything long enough, you have to have a starting point, you know. And I still feel like that's like I'm like, oh, the best is yet to come. I'm learning all the time. So I think I don't know if there was what the actual shift was for me, but I think when I stopped holding on, maybe this was about 10 years ago, to what I thought I needed in order to be okay, I saw the beauty of what actually was.
Mm.
And it was like this whole new realm just opened up to me of joy, because I went, ah, wow, I've been hanging on to all these other things that I thought I needed, but those are just stories I've told myself. But when you can let go of the stories and just experience where you actually are and all that you've achieved to get to this place, that's when you can really flow and accept yourself. And I had great, amazing acting coach, Larry Moss. He said one of the most brilliant things that I will never forget. And he said, what would someone need to know in order to play you? And if you let that land and you think about the specificity in that, nobody else is like you. There's not one other person, even if you had a twin, they're not like you. So that in and of itself give you, and I love the smile, it gives you a sense of like accomplishment and experience, and you know, all the ups and downs and sideways, and then in the end you can just smile. And you know, and like I my dad, you know, at 92, he goes, you know, I spent so much of my life worrying. He goes, what good did it do me? He goes, it's not worth it. You know, and when you put it into perspective, recently I took my son to Griffith Observatory, which I don't know if you've ever been there. It's incredible. They've got a huge oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Telescope, and you learn so much about the planets. And you think, wow, I am just this speck. I am a speck. And then we went to the La Brea tar pits, and I'm learning about the ice age, and I'm like, man, thinking about this vast expanse of time. And when you think about it like that, you think, heck, I can do everything, because this is it. This is my shot. This is my life. This is the one little blip of experience that I've got. And whatever you believe for the afterlife or whatever, this is it now, and no one can refute that. So you just let go of all of those other limiting beliefs and uphold the truth of where you are. That's
And
my
it's
sermon.
no. And it's so funny because I was gonna flip that question on you tonight from your acting coach. Is that what would someone need to know about you in order to play you?
Beats me. A lot. A lot, a lot. And it really just goes down to the specificity and the nuance of our choices, because we are just a succession and an amalgamation of choices in the end. And, you know, good, bad, or otherwise, we learn from that and grow from it. So, I think the more aware of our specificity, the more we learn who we are, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah. How was your experience on Burn Notice? Because I remember I brought that up at the beginning of the show when I introduced you, that because that was a big show. So how was your experience on Burn Notice?
Yeah, Rennie Harlan was the first director that I worked with, who's a great, legendary director. And I did the first two episodes with him, and that was great. And the cast has a lot of fun on that show, and Miami's great. So yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah. When you look at your overall career here, because we covered a lot, what is a role that you do want to play? Because you're someone that likes interesting scripts. This is why you started your own independent company as well, to get more variety. So what is that role that you would love to express and play?
Hmm. There is not. Um, I would say I would like to take on a biopic. I would like to I would like to portray someone who, living or not, because to go back to that specificity of, now you're talking about precision in character creation. And as much as you can learn about that person and their choices and their nuance and how they are and why they are, that would be really interesting to me. I haven't had that challenge yet, and I'd like to.
Mm. That's interesting. There's no doubt about it. And how are things for you personally after the show? I ask this to every actor that's on my show. I say, how are things for you after the strike now? Because there's still the worries of AI, but how are things now since the strike has been uplifted since the end of last year?
Yeah, I think the response you've probably been hearing from a lot of people is that there's a major shift in the industry, and I think that there's a real disquiet with what the future is going to be. There's a lot
Mm.
of uncertainty, um, and the funny thing is that I'm really not concerned. I mean, I'm not concerned. So there's AI will never. Sure, there should be laws, rules, and regulations, no doubt about it. But AI will never be able to reproduce what I do, and I know
No.
that because I'm human and they're not. And and besides, you can see it. You can just see it. You can feel it. Human reaction will never be taken over. So I'm not concerned, but yes, you do feel a real shift in the temperature of the business for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, you could definitely tell. I know that was a big thing, and AI still. I know you're someone that's you see the benefits of it. I know Chad GBT. I know you've talked about that before as being a positive, and there are some positives to it, but I think it could take things a little too far, especially when you think about it in the music per se, because now you see a lot of artists using. I know Drake used AI this year in one of his songs and stuff like that. Used Tupac's voice to where you're treading a line of what's false and what is reality now.
Yeah, you are. And I've heard it, of course, in music. It's really prolific. And it it's sad in a sense too, with artists that have worked so hard to create something that's unique to themselves, that it could just be overrun with a machine. But yeah, I think there's going to be a time and a place. I just don't think we know really how to use it yet. It's like a kid with a new toy. It's like you're trying things out, you're experimenting. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But yes, I do believe that there really should be laws in place for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I'm going to go through some of the fan questions here. So I want to see what the fans have been saying because I've seen they've been really
All
going through
right.
through the chat because I know. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, we got a lot of comments here from you just saying a lot from the fans saying that they love you, of course. And
Oh,
two
I love
movies this
them.
year on a roll. I see
What's
that.
that? I'm sorry, I missed that first part.
They're saying that you're on a roll this year
Oh,
because you got two movies.
great. Yep. Thank you. I feel it. I feel the roll. I feel the upswing, the upward roll.
You got some people asking about the jacket here and the costume from Terminator 3. And I was actually, yeah, let's get into it. They're asking about the jacket. Do you still have those? Because I think you donated to one to charity.
Correct. I do still have a few actually, and I did donate some, and then one year my sister wore my costume and was me for Halloween, so that was pretty cool. But yes, I did donate one for charity for an auction as well. Yes.
We got some other ones in here. Favorite line is the TX in the film.
I like your car. I gotta plug in. I'm listening. I'm plugging in my phone.
Oh, you can't
I
hear
mean,
me?
not my phone, my computer.
Oh, is it running out of battery? Is that what it
It's
is?
running out of battery, but I'm here. I'm listening. I'm just
Oh,
plugging
okay,
it
yeah.
in.
So I'm just gonna continue reading through this. Yeah, a lot of fans in here. Did you have other costumes besides the iconic red leather, Air Force blues, and scrap purple one we already know of?
Yes, that is true. And they did a series of camera tests for the costume that they wanted. And they ranged in all different colors and shapes and sizes. I mean, they were all form fitting, but there was a leather jumpsuit that I still have. I mean, a lot of these I still have because they were tailor made for me. They were absolutely gorgeous. There was one that was like a polyester, like a purple polyester that I wore to like a 70s party once. It was kind of fun. There's another beautiful kind of burgundy one that's a two-piece, but it's fabric. It's like a stretch fabric, not a leather. But even the leather, the red leather that I wore in the end, there were what we you don't know is that there were various different costumes. It all looks the same, but depending on what I had to be doing in the scene, there was one that had an action back if I was doing a lot of action. There were pants if I had to be really still that I would wear that were actually like a pleather. It was the first time we had seen stretch leather. I don't know how they make stretch leather. It's beyond me, but it was actually a stretch leather that they had just come out with at the time. I don't know if I've ever seen it since. Maybe it probably still exists. So yes, there were various different ones. Yeah.
There you have it. There's some other ones in here too. Were there deleted scenes of the TXS killing spree after her arrival?
I don't think so. I think they used everything that we shot. There was only one small moment that didn't get added, and it's in the trading cards. It made it to the trading cards, but not in the final cut. And it's basically just me searching for Kate and John Connor coming out of something. So they didn't miss much.
That looks like it's pretty much all the questions in the chat that I'm seeing here. Just a lot of comments. I know people complimenting your roles. Yeah, it was
Oh,
because they were watching this earlier. It was the saw she used for the next scene. Yeah.
the what?
The saw. When we're talking about when you
Oh
killed the
yeah.
fiance in the bed. Yeah, they were
Right.
commenting along, all the fans watching.
Yep. Cool. Cool.
Yeah,
Well, I'll
that's a
just
huge hit
say,
role. Huge hit.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely the gift that keeps giving. I love being part of the franchise. I'm so glad that people love the character. And I mean, that's what we do as actors is really to for our fans. And that is why I will just say to all of them out there that I am so grateful for your support in my career and in the variety of different roles that I've done, and your kindness and your thoughtfulness and feedback. And I really do hear it, and it really does matter. And I really appreciate that.
Arnold definitely gave you the stamp in the movie when he goes, "She'll be back." I thought that was amazing when he did
Yep.
that.
That was great. And ironically, I happened to see that in the trailer the other day for the first time in many years. And I was like, that was great. That was great. Yep. Yep. That was
Yeah.
cool.
And even when he's terminating you, you are terminated in at the ending there.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But we don't know. We don't know. It is sci-fi. Maybe not. I'm terminated. Who knows?
Here's a great question because I thought the character was amazing. I thought they should have brought Robert Patrick back at some point, and they're always bringing these legacy characters back. Would you play the TX again?
Of course. I mean, I don't even have to think about that. I'd
Yeah.
be happy to don the red suit or whatever suit they wanted me to wear and train again and do it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Arnold would be down to do another movie. He loves working. He definitely those movies keep living on.
Probably. Probably. I know the guy's a legend. I mean, why not? Again, it goes back to like, hey, this is our one shot here, so we may as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, um, there's no there's nothing too big for him to take on. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I think
You're someone that's really open. I did want to dive into this question with you is that being balancing yourself, you're someone that loves people, you balance being and you're not into like the main Hollywood scene. You're kind of on the outskirts, but you're still in the industry. So when you're in the industry and you're in the entertainment industry, it's completely different from other people and regular people's lives. You really only understand it if you're in the business. So how is it balancing being a normal person and at the same time kind of not because you live like a superstar lifestyle? That's something that I juggle with. That's something that everyone in this field juggles with. So how do you kind of balance out and form even friendships and relationships with people because it's so difficult and not a lot of people, especially regular people, understand the lifestyle and understand us. So I wanted to get it from your perspective.
you know it's funny. I don't, because it's just my life and my
Hmm.
experience. I don't really think of it as any other way,
Hmm.
and I just I make friends with whomever.
Yeah.
I don't really have a criteria. Kindness is one of them, and following through on plans is another. And just I there was once a brilliant man that I knew who said in relationships, and that does whatever kind of relationship, you match effort with effort.
Mm.
And that just landed for me. I mean, it's really simple and it's really true. But beyond that, if it I mean, I'm friends with people from all walks of life. When I'm in like the work mode, there's a certain circle of people, there's a certain protocol, shall we say, a certain decorum. but that feels very much like work to
Mhm.
me. That's, but in my personal life, um it's whomever I feel like I have shared values with, and we like to do similar things, and that could be someone, yeah, from any walk of life.
That's interesting. And especially with you growing up, you're more into the outside world. It's different now with social media and everything. So you're still someone that's remained actually here on Earth. A lot of people are on planet social media.
That is true. That is true. And I think I value my private time as well. I mean, I don't need to, I'm not someone who broadcasts, what I had for breakfast this morning. Like, first of all, it's not interesting to me. And second of all, like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm like, I'm enjoying what is, but also like I like to balance having my time as just my time, separate from the public.
I agree with you on that. We have another question in here too. Did they allow you to keep the script? If so, do you still have it from Terminator 3?
Hmm, great question. You know, I I kind of ceremoniously throw them out after I'm done with them. Um, I probably shouldn't, because I've been asked this question before. But I think I need to like let it go and move on. And there's a symbolism in that for me, because you can't. It takes a while when you've been wearing a character for a long period of time to shed the character. There's a bit of a process with that. I remember with Painkiller Jane, the uh, TV series I did for Sci-Fi, and that was 8 months. And every episode, my character was getting beat up and tossed around and emotionally thrashed, and just physically and emotionally and mentally, and also being a producer on it. I was just I was just beat after that 8 months. And, so there's a catharsis with, I think, the processing of just letting it go, letting it go afterwards. So, yeah, that's one thing in my life that I don't hang on to, is the scripts.
Another one. Let's see. Have you tried more voice acting? She did great in Battlestar Galactica, the video game.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to do more voiceover work, actually. It's it's an interesting business. I think, like TV and film, it's competitive in its own right. People get into that and they're like voiceover actors, and that's their forte. I mean, there are certain people that will even dub famous actors in films, but it's not them. Like, so and so will do Natalie Portman, because they can replicate her voice perfectly. Actually, had met people that specifically would, take on other celebrities' voices at certain times when they weren't available or whatever for things. But audiobooks have become really popular. I love audiobooks. And there are some, I mean, Tom Hanks. I listened to a book Meryl Streep read. And so that could be something fun. So yeah, I would like to do more of that.
We got some more Terminator questions here. You've mentioned that you've added touches, and in a documentary, you've said that it happened specifically on the blood DNA test. Was the TXS gas reaction your idea, or was it in the script?
Was the TX gasp reaction when I tasted the blood?
Yeah. Was that your idea, or was it in the script?
That was me. That was not in the script. There were moments like that I added to humanize her a bit, because even though she's a killer robot sent from the future, you have to be able to root for her in some way. And by throwing in these slight human moments, like that moment, or like looking in the mirror and during the bathroom scene when I was crossing it. Human moments like that where you go, huh, is she or isn't she? And you want to root for her in some way. So those were specific moments that that I added.
And can it be implied that the TX terminated all the targets before she went for Kate Brewster and John Connor?
Can it be implied? Is
Mhm.
that the word?
Yeah.
That read it again, please.
Can it be implied that the TX terminated all the targets before she went for Kate Brewster and John Connor?
I believe so. I believe so. I think that was what they were leading up to with me, Jose Barrera at the drive-through, the kids at the party, um, with the dog, the mechanical dog. I think that scene is still in there. For some reason, I just had a moment of thinking maybe they cut that out, that scene. But yes, I think there were a series of yes, like younger kids that had to be eliminated for the future that were in the resistance. Yes.
Mhm. Was there an extended version of her arrival scene where she hacked the ATM the lady was using, causing it to fail, and then where she gets in the car?
I guess if TX needed money, maybe there should have been, but maybe that person should write a script about it. That would be, what there is there at that particular intersection that I cross in Beverly Hills is this bodice, this statue, this nude bodice, and it's metal. Now it doesn't say TX on it, but I how could it not be me? I mean, that's, I think, how could it not? It's really, and if it isn't, it's a very interesting choice and it's very ironic. But,
Yeah.
maybe nothing's ironic in life. Maybe it's all predetermined.
And we got a comment here. The TX truly is the most effective Terminator so far.
Great. I love it. Thank you.
And that's all the fan questions and comments. There's a lot in there, but I read pretty much all of them to you. As far as the questions are all, those are the questions that were sent in. So there you have it. Your
That's
fans
great.
are very loyal.
That's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate my fans and everything. And this has been amazing to talk to you. You were great. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for the insightful, deep questions. And, I just wish you all the best in your career and future. And I'm sure it's going to continue to be bright.
Thank you. It means a lot. And thank you for all your contributions on the screen too. I'm looking forward to these upcoming films.
My
They're going to be
pleasure.
very impactful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you.
And thank you to your management for getting this set up. And, congratulations on Trio Entertainment. You always have an open invitation on the show. Thank you for coming on, Kristanna.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me,
Of
and we will share it. Send me the link, and we'll share it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And they can follow you on Instagram at KS Loken. And then Twitter, it's something different I saw. Give them the X.
Yep, it's at Loken Kristanna, and then of course my official Facebook page.
Yeah. We went from Twitter to X. So there you go, TX.
There you go. Oh, very clever. Very clever.
Oh, there
Awesome.
we go. Kristanna, thank you again. I had a great time speaking with you. And
Me
like I said,
too.
anytime.
My pleasure. Thank you. Can I one last question? Where in New York are you?
I'm actually in Connecticut right now, but
Okay.
I broadcast all throughout the tri-state and then worldwide, of course. But my base is mainly in the tri-state. But the place where I got my start is Queens. So Queens,
Okay, cool. Very good.
yeah,
Well, enjoy the fall colors.
yeah. Well, I'll be coming down to California. That's my plan to relocate to California very soon. So I'll be on the West Coast soon.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, may the journey be smooth for you.
Thank you.
All right, great
Our
talking to
Kristanna.
you. Take
Yes.
care.
Take care. Have a great
Bye.
night. Bye bye.
Thank you.